Lunchtime Tuesday, we're joined by Joe Sheehan, Joe Sheehan Newsletter. Joe, what's up, brother?
Busy day, man. You're usually the first person I talk to on a Tuesday. I actually had 3 other interviews today so far.
Okay, you got to tell me, what's going on? What am I missing? Are they all want to talk about Brendan Sorsby? They want to talk about the College World Series? Like, what's the breaking news that everybody needs their Joe Sheehan time?
There's 2 locals, Dan Bernstein in Chicago, talking Cubs and White Sox. Jason Lockenfor in Baltimore, talking Orioles. These are guys with their own YouTube channels, and they were, recording stuff. And then I did a hit on VSiN, the Vegas Sports and Information Network, with Gil Alexander, which is a show I go on a couple times a month. And that's just giving out some picks and talking about some baseball stuff. So it's a mix. The more local stuff, like you, I talk Astros and Rangers. I go on in Seattle and talk Mariners. Everybody wants to talk about their local teams. The VSiN one is more of a national segment.
Fair enough. Joe's been busy is what he's saying. Joe's been working today. I'm sorry, man. I apologize for that.
It's just funny. I usually don't talk this much in a week. And, it's by 1 o'clock today. It's like I'm a little sick of my own voice already.
Joe, I needed your help. This might sound odd. I needed your help understanding the wild card because, I looked at the American League, and the Angels are within 8, and they're the dead last team in the league. So how do I know what's a real wild card contender and what's not a wild card contender as we start the summer?
You don't. Ready to go to break?
That's Joe Sheehan, everybody, every Tuesday. Thank you, Joe. That insight was so insightful.
It is such a bizarre year. The National League is absolutely crushing the American League in interleague play. They're 172 and 133, which comes out to, don't make me do math, like a 90-win pace. So basically the NL is 10 games better than the American League as a league. We just haven't seen that gap very often. You got to go back to the 2000s to find a year, and then back then it was the AL, where you had interleague play being dominated to this extent. But remember, the way the schedule is now, interleague play is the largest part of the schedule that it's been in baseball history. So if one league dominates the other to that extent, you can push, most of the league under 500. You actually right now, as of today, have, 5 American League teams over 500, which is to say that if the season ended today, which would surprise all of us, the Rangers would be in the playoffs at 32 and 33. Now, this almost happened in 94. If the 94 season had been played out, it was a strike in August, obviously, as you know. At the time this strike happened, the Rangers led the AL West with, they were 10 games under 500, 54 and 64 or something like that. We probably would have had a sub-500 team in the playoffs in the first year of that playoff expansion. And I think that would have made for interesting conversations. And do we want this to be baseball? You could have conceivably seen baseball go away from that format. And in the 30-odd years since, we haven't had that. Other than 2020, which doesn't count, we have not had a sub-500 team make the playoffs. It is possible. It is not likely, but it is possible it will happen this year because the teams fighting for that last playoff spot in the AL are just not that great. I thought it would be the Rangers at the start of the year. I thought they'd win 85 games and get the last playoff spot. Obviously, the offense has not been what we hoped it would be. Guys haven't really taken that step forward. They've had a lot of injuries at the plate. The bullpen has been a little bit shaky. I still think the Rangers end up with that final playoff spot, but it's entirely possible it'll be 80 and 82.
Jeez, 2 games below. So can I eliminate teams from the wild card race, or do I actually still have to consider everyone a contender?
See, forget September 30th. I think the fascinating part comes here in the next 6 or 7 weeks because you're going to have a lot of these teams under 500, but 2.5 games out of a playoff spot. Just looking at the standings today, the Astros are 31 and 37. That's bad. But they're 2.5 games out of a playoff berth. They're 4.5 games out of the division. What do you do in that situation where your team isn't that good, but you also are very close to a playoff berth? And you're going to have 3 to 5 teams in the AL in this situation. The Tigers, the Orioles, the Royals, these teams that came into the year expecting to contend are going to be faced with this. And particularly for those AL East teams, they're probably not going to be able to consider the division an option. The Blue Jays, the Orioles, they're probably just playing for that wild card spot. Whereas if you're in the AL Central or even the AL West, you might convince yourself you can actually still win the division, so you're playing for multiple playoff spots. I think it's going to be fascinating when we get to July, particularly after the break. The deadline this year is August 3rd, which is as late as it's ever been. So these conversations are going to go on for a while. But it is utterly fascinating the choices these teams are going to have to make. We did a whole song and dance, you and me, about 3 weeks ago, about the Astros having to sell and, what do they really have to sell if they're not going to put Yordan Alvarez on the market? They're 15-10, more or less, in their last 25. And like I say, they're in this position now where they're 2.5 games out of a playoff spot. It's early, and we'll see how the schedules change. But it's not like any of these teams looks like they're likely to win 22 of 23 and end this conversation. I think the hard part for GMs, and we've seen this in recent years, GMs want certainty. GMs don't want to be in a position where, I don't know if we should buy or sell. You either want to be in the playoff race and be selling or buying, or you want to be so clearly out of it you can sell. And so many GMs have gotten themselves in trouble in recent years trying to straddle the fence, or even worse, not doing anything at all. And I think a lot of guys are going to be in that position, possibly including Dana Brown.
You know what? I still think they should sell. I told you, I'm not excited by being a participant. Even if the Astros make the postseason, they have zero chance. So, okay, it's 1%. You've taught me that no team has zero chance. Once you make the postseason, it's anybody's. So they have a 1% chance. And to make the postseason would just be prolong the death of this Astros team by another year.
Well, I think the issue comes, what are you doing if you're not selling Alvarez? What's the point? You're just not going to get anything for the guys you might be selling, your Walkers, your Paredes. You're going to get.
Don't forget Pena. Isn't Pena going into his free agent year?
A year and a half. Pena's kind of in this in between. When we talked last time, he was hurt. He's back in the lineup now. I think it's interesting because if you look at the contenders, not a lot of them need shortstops. It's a weird moment where it's just, if you're shopping at shortstop, there's not a lot of places to send them. Look around at the good teams in baseball, and they're pretty much all set at shortstop. Or their shortstop's injured in the case of the Mets. Like Lindor's been out, but you're not replacing Lindor. So I think Pena is actually an interesting, a very good player, but you might have a hard time finding a landing spot for him just because a lot of teams have shortstops already. It's a great time in baseball for shortstop. So I think Alvarez is really the guy. Either you're trading Alvarez and you're going into a rebuild, or you're not trading Alvarez and there's no point in trying to trade off Walker and Paredes and all these other guys. Because, Louie, look at the last few trade deadlines, and you just don't get a lot for B and C players. You don't get a lot for rentals. There are only maybe one or two top 100 prospects that get traded every year at the deadline. Last year Mason Miller was traded for Leo DeVries. Yohan Duran was traded for Eduardo Tate, the catcher for the Twins. It's not like it used to be where you could rebuild your farm system at the deadline. Alvarez is a guy who might let them do that. Walker isn't.
And thinking it through, even on this one, Pena needs to be traded because they'll do the other thing they do. They're not going to sign him. They're going to get nothing. You might as well trade him anyway. You're just going to be a participant no matter what.
Well, if you're going to trade him, now is the time to do it. If memory serves, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, he's a free agent at the end of the 2017 season. So if you trade him now, he's not a rental. Teams are going to get him for 2 pennant races, 2 playoff runs, and as importantly, I don't know what the rules are going to be next year. But as the rules are now, they would also have the opportunity to make him a qualifying offer and get a draft pick if he were to leave as a free agent. If you wait until next year, none of that is true. So the time to strike, what we've learned time and time again, is that trading a rental doesn't get you much, but if you can trade years of control, you actually can get more back. So, yeah, you're right with Pena. If they're going to do it, this is the year to do it.
I looked at the AL wild card. It just kind of blew my mind where, again, Angels dead last are only 8, and 8 is only at this point in the year. There's 4 months left. And then you got the Royals, the Tigers, 5.5 back, and the Tigers are going to be sellers, right? Is there any way around that?
They're going to get Scuba back a lot more quickly than expected. They've been building towards this year, coming off the 2 playoff appearances. I don't think they're going to want to sell. And as mentioned, they're a team that conceivably say, hey, we still have a shot at the division. They're 9 back today with a lot of head-to-head games against the Guardians left. The Guardians, I just don't think, are all that strong. So, they're the team you want to be chasing. The White Sox also probably more of a mirage. So, no, I don't think the Tigers – I think if the Tigers are going to have to be forced to sell by the stands. If they're still 9 out in the division, if they're still 4 out in the wild card, maybe that. And I think it's hard to entirely have this conversation today, Louie, just because we don't know what the standings will look like. July 25th is the date I usually look at. Like, that to me is where you've got to be go, no go on your decisions. And maybe you push that back a couple of days because the trade deadline is late this year. But so much is going to happen over these next, about 35, 40 games between now, because, the All-Star break is in there, 35, 40 games between now and your decision point. What are these standings going to look like? Is it going to look like today? Or is it seem like the Rangers going to kind of get some separation in that last playoff spot? And all of a sudden now you have 5 teams, 4 games back to the final wild card, and now they are more convinced of so.
Well, if you end up with a little separation, you already know the organizations that will commit and those that won't. That's just historical. Like, Toronto's going to fight to the end. They're never going to give up.
Yeah, again, you've got a team that's put a lot of money into the roster. They signed Cease. This is Gaussman's last year before free agency, I believe. They made that big investment in Vladimir Guerrero. They don't want to sell if they can avoid it. I think of the Padres. They're obviously in the NL at this point, but they're not a team that's going to likely sell. The Tigers, I think, are inclined to sell. The Royals, they put some money into this roster, but it's just not very good. You're starting to run out of time with Bobby Witt Jr. Bobby Witt Jr. is only signed to 30, and you've kind of wasted a couple of years of his prime putting a pretty poor team around it. Look at who else we're talking about. The Orioles. That's a fascinating case because they don't really have prospects to trade. That's a bad farm system. And we talk about intent all we want, but you've also got to have the bullets. We saw A.J. Preller last year trade one of the best prospects in baseball to get Mason Miller. The Orioles don't have anything like that. So it's intent, and it's what direction you want to go in, but it's also, do we even have the tools to fight? There's also the issue of, Mike Elias is a guy, and I would put Jed Hoyer in Chicago possibly in this bin too, where if they don't succeed this year, there might not be a next year. There are a number of GMs who are probably playing for their lives this year.
Baltimore's a fascinating story. Aren't they the dynasty that never was? They had all the young and up-and-coming players, rookies of the year, and this incredible roster. They threatened and never would make the trade to get over the hump and never ended up actually getting anywhere.
2 things. One, you made it to the big part. They never really made the big moves. They made a trade they rented Corbin Burns for 1 year. But it wasn't until this last winter that they actually went out and really put money into the roster under new owner David Rubenstein. That was 1. And 2, their young hitters haven't really clicked. Now, the last month, some of them have hit, but you look at guys like Heston Kjerstad, who's buried in the minors, Colton Cowser, Kobe Mayo, even Gunnar Henderson's gone backwards. They've had a lot of problems developing these hitters, and they've really not developed any pitching at all other than Kyle Bradish. So, Grayson Rodriguez was a top 5 prospect at one point, and now you saw him last night facing the Astros. So he's kind of trying to come back from a series of injuries. So it's been both a lack of investment and a lack of development that have held back the Orioles. And I do think you're kind of running out of time. Mike Elias, I want to say, has been there since 9th season. At some point, you got to say, hey, you didn't get the job done. We got to figure out, we got to hand this over to somebody else.
Also, at some point, though, the window's just closed.
Right. Well, you look at the Orioles, all of those guys I mentioned are under control. Rutschman's free agent at the end of 27, but everybody else is under control, plus they've signed Alonso. So you can make the argument that we can run it back one more year with this core and see what happens, especially since, like I said, Basayo, Mayo, Cowser, these guys have all started to hit over the last month. You would expect Henderson to. I think the real issue for them is it's not a major league pitcher. I'll take that back. It's not a contender's pitching staff.
There's one team in all of these I was looking at that made me chuckle because it's so weird. I don't know who they are. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what the Minnesota Twins.
So they went to their story last year, Louie. They traded something like 10 players off their active roster last year at the trade deadline. It was a massive teardown. They traded Carlos Correa back to the Astros. They traded literally their top 6 relievers. And at the time, it didn't bother me because I don't think Correa's that much of a player at this point. And you can always make more relievers. I say it all the time, right? Relievers come out of absolutely nowhere all the time. And if you trade 6 relievers, it's the easiest. It's not easy, but it's a heck of a lot easier to replace 6 relievers than 6 starting pitchers or 6 infielders or whatever have you. And we've seen that. The Twins have kind of churned through this pen. Their issues, they lost the number 2 starter at the beginning of the year in Pablo Lopez. Lopez, that's just not the kind of thing you can replace in March. Joe Ryan has been in and out with some injuries. Bailey Ober is out right now. their strength was this starting rotation coming into the year, and it's where they collected a bunch of injuries. So I don't see them as a contender. I'm not sure they see themselves as a contender. Byron Buxton, there's a lot of talk about maybe trading him. He's got a no-trade clause. He doesn't want to leave. So you're talking about maybe Joe Ryan, who's, again, he's a free agent at the end of 27. You're probably not going to retain him, and you're a fringe contender next year, even with him and with Pablo Lopez coming back. So Ryan, let's assume the Tigers don't trade Skubal. Ryan is probably the best starter available at the deadline if the Twins go in that direction.
Fair enough. It's just really odd. For me as a fan, right? Like, for each team, I know a little something. I'm a baseball fan. And the Twins were the one where I went, wait a minute. I don't know who they are or what they do.
It's their own fault. They had a stretch, Louie. They went 2 consecutive off seasons without signing or trading for anybody. I don't mean anybody good. I mean anybody. They took 2 consecutive off seasons completely off. They were trying to lower the payroll in preparation for a sale that never happened. They just felt, they came out of the pandemic with their money a little messed up. But when you just do nothing for 2 years, not only do you fall off the radar of guys like, national guys or guys outside the market, they've fallen off the radar inside the market. Their attendance plummeted. They couldn't get they wanted $2 billion for the team. They couldn't get that because they'd driven down the value of the franchise by basically disappearing for 2 years.
Joe, quick timeout, come back. I want to look at the National League, brother.
Cool.
Joe Sheehan of the Joe Sheehan newsletter is hanging out with us on the D4 Land Services hotline. It's where most guests join me because they don't live next door. Like Joe, deep in New York City, Central Park. I don't know. Sounds like he's at the park anyway. Joe Sheehan on the D4 Land Services hotline. If you ever need forestry, mulching, pond construction, how about a metal building, like a custom metal building from the ground up? Go check out d4landservices.com, d4landservices.com.
Visit zone1150.com and get the podcast for TexAgs Live, the Louie Bellina Show, and Chip Howard Sports Talk. The podcasts are also available anywhere and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts.
The Louie Bellina Show. I'm inside the Charles Schwab studio. Tuesday edition. We're rejoined. Joe Sheehan newsletter. Joe, we took a look. Again, the wild card's just kind of opening up the world. Let's take a look at the National League where you said there's good and evil. There's teams that are actually good and bad.
Yeah, and you got a more complicated situation here. I mentioned that because of the interleague play, the AL teams have all been driven under 500. Well, those wins have to go somewhere, and you have a National League where 11 teams are above 500 right now. The Nationals are a game out of a playoff spot. The Pirates are a half game out of a playoff spot. It's just a fascinating race here with a better collection of teams. I think you're going to have some of these same conversations, especially with the division races that are going to be much more out of reach. The Braves are up 9 in the East. The Brewers are up 5.5 in the Central. The Dodgers are up 7.5 in the West. Now those numbers can change, obviously, but likely as not, it's going to be about the wild cards. And you've got from the Cardinals at 35 and 28, all the way down to the Reds at 31 and 34. That's 8 teams separated by 6 games. And again, these are not teams you can say, well, we're actually bad. We shouldn't. These teams are various stages of good. They're in balance. Like the Pirates have a very good offense and a bad pitching staff. The Reds have a good pitching staff and good rotation and a bad offense. There's just a lot of imbalanced teams that are going to be clustered around 500. You look at the underlying numbers, and some of these teams actually don't look nearly as good. I use third order record, which is something that my old BP colleague, Clay Davenport, calculates. And you've got teams like the Padres, the Reds, and the Cardinals, who, based on their underlying performance, are actually well under 500. But they've won a lot of close games, they've won some extra inning games, and they're going to be in this race. If the AL is kind of who's going to rise to the top of this bad pile of bad teams, the NL is who's going to fall off the pace. We've seen the Padres lose it a little bit lately. They're playing the Reds this week, I should say, kind of two underachieving teams. We saw the Cardinals play really well over the weekend. They actually just they just sent down their starting center fielder in Victor Scott. So they might be taking themselves a little more seriously. It's a fascinating year just because of the disparity between the leagues, but also because you have this lack of separation in the middle. At the start of the year, when I did my preseason projection, I had something like 13 teams separated by 6 games in the middle of the standings, and that's been borne out. And, you know, is it entertaining? Yeah. Is it great? I personally like to see races between good teams, between great teams even, and this is what we've kind of replaced that with.
So you realize I'm still kind of like recovering from you saying the Pirates have an awful pitching staff and they have Paul Skeens. Like that's hard to like process that whole concept.
They have one of the worst bullpens, just an absolutely hideous bullpen that's dragging everything down. The rotation's actually been good. You know, Skeens is basically, he's having an off year for him, which still makes him like the 4th best pitcher in the league. Braxton Ashcraft has been good. They have a rookie, Bubba Chandler, who came in incredibly hyped but hasn't been able to find the strike zone. He actually pitched well. For the first time the other day, Louie, they used an opener for him instead of having him start the game. You start the game with a reliever, let the reliever pitch to the top of the lineup, and then you bring in the starter. And Chandler had his best outing of the year, so we'll see if they got him straightened out. But they were supposed to be more of a pitching-heavy team this year, and instead it's been the offense. They traded for Brandon Louie, he's been great. They signed Ryan O'Hearn, he's been great. Brian Reynolds has had a bounce-back year. They've had a lot of these 30-somethings have their best years in a while.
Wow. Okay. And you mentioned, the top 8 teams. So even though the Marlins are 3.5 out, right, just knowing them and their state, that's not a team that's going to trade up, trade in. They're not a team that's even trying to contend.
Tell me how they play over the next 7 weeks, and I'll tell you what they'll do at the trade deadline. I think they absolutely, I don't think they'd sell just because they don't have a lot of, they don't really have, I'm not sure they have a single pending free agent now that I think about it. And they have a lot of these like older players without a lot of experience, Xavier Edwards and Otto Lopez and guys like that. Leon Hicks has been a breakout for them behind the plate. They're not really in position to sell because they don't have like veterans that teams are necessarily going to want. And I think if they were given an opportunity, if they were a game or two out at the trade deadline, I think they would make minor moves. I don't think they trade some of their top prospects. They actually just lost one of their top prospects, Thomas White, a pitcher, is going to be out for the year. So, yeah, that's a trade chip they might have had. But I don't think they're going to sell, and I think they're more likely to make minor buys. And they're a team that can improve. Like, you go out and give them a number 4 starter. You go out and give them a couple of better relievers. You go out and get them an OBP guy for the top of the lineup. Like, that's a team that can improve fairly easily because their holes are identifiable and fixable. The hardest team to fix is the one that has, like, average players just about everywhere. Because even getting a superstar doesn't make you all that much better. But what you want to have is one really bad player in your lineup, or 2 really bad players in your lineup, or a 2-man starting rotation that really needs a number 3.
You can make a bigger impact.
Exactly. That's what you always want to be able to do at the trade deadline. So to me, the Marlins have a roster that's easier to fix. I look at the Padres, who just have not nearly enough hitting. They have a roster that's easier to fix. Whereas the Cubs, that's going to be a tougher lift.
You said the Cubs. I was going to go there. The Chicago Cubs win 2 10-game winning streaks, a 10-game losing streak. Starting pitching just devastated by injuries. Alex Bregman this week has taken credit for all that's wrong in the world. I think he blamed himself for world hunger. I mean, it's just not coming together.
No, and I think their age has been an issue for them. Bregman, they signed him to the 5-year deal. He's 32, and he started to look at we used to talk about the cliff being at like 36 years old for baseball players. And that's really been moved up because of the way pitchers are now with the velocity. With the average Major League fastball is 95 miles an hour now. And so hitters will age out of the ability to hit that earlier than they did, 25, 30 years ago. So 32 starts to look like a cliff. We've seen Bregman kind of slip a bit. We've seen Mookie Betts slip. The Cubs also have Dansby Swanson, also 32 years old, having the worst year of his career. Seiya Suzuki is 31. He's fallen off. I think the Cubs have a lot of these guys who are no longer middle of the lineup type options, but they're also not so bad that you think you can replace them. So it's this really awful thing. How do we improve this offense with a whole bunch of like average to average plus hitters when they really need more than anything else? They need some big stud bat in the middle of the lineup. They also have pitching issues. 4 starters. They don't really have even a number 3 starter. Well, the number 2 starter in the group, Edward Cabrera, is number 3. They just lost Jameson Taillon to a hamstring injury. He's going to be out for a bit. They've done a good job. Ben Brown, who they got in a deadline trade from the Phillies. Louie, I don't even remember who they traded from. That year that they tore down. The year they traded Rizzo and all those guys. But Brown failed as a starter, went to the bullpen, was good. They moved him back to the rotation. He's been great, which is wonderful, but how many innings can you reasonably get out of somebody who's been throwing, I think he threw 100 innings total last year, 110 innings. Like, how much are you actually going to be able to get out of him this year? Colin Ray, I mean, he's a number 5 type. There's just not a lot of pitching here. And I thought it was fine at the start of the year because I said they're just going to win game 6-4. Well, the offense hasn't enabled them to do that. So something's got to get fixed here. I think, Jed Hoyer, I mentioned Mike Elias earlier. There's a lot of pressure on Jed Hoyer to win this year. If they take a step backwards, I think if they make the playoffs as a wild card and don't advance, that's not going to be good enough. And if they don't make the playoffs entirely, they'll probably move on from Hoyer.
So, Joe, there's 4 teams currently because there's a tie with the Diamondbacks and Padres for the 3rd spot. So, Cardinals, Phillies, D-backs, Padres. Which one of them would you sell for the NL wild card? Which one would you sell?
The Cardinals. They've got a great record in extra inning and one-run games. It's not entirely sustainable. They don't strike anybody out. They've actually played very good defense, which has helped keep them in the games. Jordan Walker's had a bit of a breakout. Just on talent, I don't think they're going to be able to sustain this. They're the team of this group that, tell me a team's going to lose 20 out of 30. It's probably the Cardinals. I most believe in the Diamondbacks. They're probably going to get Corbin Burns back here soon. They've got length in the lineup. The Nolan Arenado trade has worked out reasonably well for them. They have some bullpen issues. They might get some injured relievers back here soon as well. But I think if I'm going to rank these two, it's Diamondbacks, Phillies, Padres, Cardinals. And the Padres actually have a lot of the same issues that the Cardinals do. They've won a lot of close games. You've probably seen Mason Miller blowing somebody away at some point. Their bullpen is good. The problem is they don't get to it enough. They don't score enough runs. Jackson Merrill, Fernando Tatis, and Manny Machado have all been flat out bad. So the offense hasn't been good enough to let them get leads to the bullpen. They've hung on because basically when they have a lead in the 7th, they're very hard to beat. They just don't have leads enough. So I think the Cardinals and the Padres are the teams that'll slip out of it. I think the Diamondbacks and the Phillies are the ones that'll move forward.
Man, I know why I hate the Cardinals because I'm an Astros-Cubs fan. So I've got 2 reasons. I don't know why you always hate the Cardinals, though. Like they got like a statue of you up in St. Louis.
I would say that I don't hate the Cardinals. I did a lot of media in St. Louis for the year, so I tend to know a lot about them. Also, too, a guy who worked under me at Prospectus 20 years ago, Chaim Bloom. He went to the Rays, the Red Sox, and now he's the GM in St. Louis. So there's certainly a personal connection there where I want Chaim to succeed. I do not hate him. You hate him. I will say this.
Did he take your lunch at Baseball Prospectus? Like he grabbed it out of the fridge?
Yeah, in the offices that we had. I will say that they're building something there that's real and it's going to be sustainable, possibly as soon as next year. But the team that they have right now is not really built to it. It's this transition team, and it's played very well, and a lot of things have gone well. But what you don't want to do, and we saw this in Boston with Chaim, is get good before you're supposed to, because then it throws you off track, and then maybe you make the moves you otherwise wouldn't have made with a team that's not as good as it looked in that year. I think you've got to treat the Cardinals like they're still a rebuilding team as opposed to a team that might make the playoffs.
Joe, thank you always, man. I appreciate the knowledge. I appreciate the time. I thought with the summer starting, it'd just be a good time to set this wild card because the word wild kind of definitely applies right now.
It's absolutely. It's a very strange year in baseball, and the wild card races reflect that.
But it's a fun time. If you're a baseball fan, it's a really fun time with the wild card looking like this.
Sure, there are 24 fan bases right now that can look at the standings and go, yeah, we got a shot.
You're saying there's a chance. Joe, be awesome, brother.
Take care, brother.
Later, man. Joe Sheehan of the Joe Sheehan newsletter joining us on the D4 Land Services hotline. When we return, Uri Geva, Bombers owner. We got to keep our baseball theme rolling here on the Louie Bellina Show, presented by CC Electric. Residential, commercial, industrial services is what they do at CC Electric.
Your home for Texas A&M football is Sports Radio 1150 AM and 93.7 FM. The Zone. The Zone.
Louie Bellina Show Tuesday. I can read a calendar. I don't, not always, but today I'm on a roll. The Louie Bellina Show, I'm inside the Charles Schwab studio, but in order to hang out with a friend, check in on the latest on the Brazos Valley Bombers. We head out on the D4 Land Services hotline. We're joined by their owner, Uri Geva. Uri, how's your universe, dude? What are you up to?
Let's go Bombers. We've got a fun week after a crazy opening week last week. You know, it's interesting as we play in our home away from home in Navasota, how the weather patterns are different in Navasota than they are in other parts. So it could be like hammering rain in Bryan or in College Station and blue sky in Navasota, or the complete opposite. So it's like, okay, got to watch the radar, got to see what's going on down Highway 6. We had games every night. We obviously got a turf field, fantastic facility there in Navasota. And so we played ball. We had our home opener on Tuesday night, Thirsty Thursday, thanks to the Zone, $1 beer, $1 water on Thursday. And then Friday firework. And, man, that was a great show. It always is a great show, and it always surprises me how good of a show it is. And I always wonder, is it going to be a better show? And it always is a better show than what I think. And the best part about it is the lights in Navasota High School. When you turn them off at 9 o'clock to shoot fireworks in the middle of a baseball game and you turn them back on, the baseball game starts right back. We don't have to wait 20 minutes like our old facility. The lights are on and off immediately like a light switch at your house, and that was amazing. I did not get ridiculed by the baseball coaches for the first time for shooting fireworks in the middle of a game. So that was amazing. So that was last week, and now we, just because it's more fun, we're playing a pop-up game in Brenham this week.
Yeah, I knew. For those that don't know, the Brazos Valley Bombers, home games are in Navasota. Navasota High, renovated, really nice facility. They've got the fun there. They've got beer. They've got wine, margaritas. They've also got water. They've got the family discounts. They've got the party. It's there too. But also, they're going to play games throughout the Brazos Valley. The old Barnstorming days, the history of baseball. They have pop-up games. Next up for the Brazos Valley Bombers, tomorrow night, where are you guys going to be, Uri?
We are going to be at Fireman's Park. I believe it was built in 1908, if I'm not mistaken. It might even have roots back to the 19th century. It is old school as old school gets. It's got that old-time ballpark feel to it. It's amazing. Brenham is being an incredible partner, an incredible host for us, and we're going to have a game there. And what does that mean? That means our Cook Shack is traveling with us. That means Cookie Dough is going to be there. That means that we'll have the bounce houses and all the fun for the kids. Kaboom is going. Steve Fullhart, on-field MC, the music, the show, the on-field contest. Everything is traveling with us, and it's free. It's 100% free for people to come in, not the food or the beer or the bounce houses, but
the tickets.
To come catch the game. The tickets are 100% free. Thanks to Citizens State Bank, they said, hey, we're here in Brenham. We love the Bombers. We've sponsored the Bombers when you were up in Bryan. Let's bring this show on the road. Let's bring it to Brenham, and we'll buy out the ballpark for everybody to get free tickets. All you got to do is go to bvbombers.com, click on the Brenham pop-up game, and you can reserve your tickets, and they are 100% free, and it's going to be a fun night in Brenham as the Bombers take on the Generals. I think this might be the last time we play the Generals, at least in the first half. I don't know the schedule by heart, but I think it's the last time we played our rivals there. It's going to be a great baseball game. It's grass, dirt, old school like it used to be, not this fancy new turf we got everywhere. And we're excited to put the show on dirt and have a lot of fun with it and, go win a game in Brenham and represent the Cubs and the whole community there. We got the mayor of Brenham throwing out a first pitch. We got Brenham kids involved. It's going to be just a fun Brenham night. And I didn't realize this, but Brenham's 40 minutes away. That's not a long drive for anybody in Bryan College Station if they want to still catch the game over there.
So, tomorrow night, the Brazos Valley Bombers, they're doing a barnstorming game, a pop-up game in Brenham, 7:05, same first pitch, and the Brazos Valley Bombers are bringing everything you have been used to for 19. This is the 20th year at a Bombers game. Turn your radio down, Uri. There we go. Turn the radio off. You can listen on the phone. There we go. And they have all the Bombers fun, all the Bombers excitement, but at Brenham, at the Brenham Baseball Park. I think this is exciting. How many of these games do you have throughout the year?
So we're going to do 2. We initially thought we'd do a lot more, but we love Navasota. It's been such an incredible facility. We said, okay, we'll do this one, and then later this week after Brenham, we'll announce on Thursday or Friday where the next pop-up game is, and I'll give you a hint. It's going to be on July 1.
Ooh, okay. You've got me in because I thought I saw July 8th. I guess the schedule's changed. That's fine.
Yeah, no, we've moved it to July 1. We're excited to be there. We'll announce that city. And again, Stylecraft Home Builders decided to buy out that ballpark. So we'll make that big announcement.
These are so much fun, man. These are so much fun.
Yeah, and they're free for everybody to enjoy, so it's a great way for them to get to know the Bombers, get to be part of what we're doing. And then even more importantly is, in case you can't make it to Brenham or the future July 1 pop-up game, we're back home in our home away from home in Navasota Saturday and Sunday. So Saturday, kids get in free, and they get to play for free on the bounce houses. It's Kids Free Saturday, thanks to Chicken Express. And then we're back home again on Sunday. So we'll have back-to-back games there. It's going to be a great, fun night. On Sunday, we're giving away foam fingers. So for the first few through the gates, they'll get foam fingers, Bombers foam fingers, always fun, a great souvenir to have. And that's happening on Sunday. So Saturday, back in Navasota at our home away from home. Sunday, back in Navasota. And, of course, Thursday, Friday, we'll be on the road. And you can catch all the games on TCL TV or on The Zone.
That's right. I know the Bombers, that game tomorrow. The Brenham game is going to be here on The Zone, the Barnstorming game. So we'll get a taste for the atmosphere and the environment tomorrow, 6:45 pregame, Bombers baseball. We have select games all June and July long right here on The Zone, 11:50 a.m. and 93.7 FM. And over the weekend, you mentioned you'll be back home in Navasota. The Flying Bison?
Yeah, the Flying Bison from Abilene are coming down. It was a tough two-game series when we went up there. We lost the first one after being up 2-0, gave up a couple of runs in the bottom of the eighth, went to 12 innings, lost an extra inning. Very close game. We should have had that one in the bag. That's okay. The team's building some great chemistry. And then we fell behind 6-2 and slowly climbed back, tied the game up 8-8, and then lost it in the bottom of the ninth. So they're definitely a competitive team. They're really good at what they do up there in Abilene. They're playing their home games at Abilene Christian. They pack that place, and they travel well, and so we're excited to host the Abilene Flying Bison in their inaugural season in the TCL. They moved over from a different league and joined our league, and it's been a great positive for North Texas as well as just the rest of us to have another foe to play against.
It just sounds a lot of fun. Again, Bombers, you have 3 opportunities this week to go catch them in action. You can go to Brenham tomorrow night. It's free. It's one of their barnstorming games. It's one of their pop-up games because their home games are in Navasota, which with the highway, it's, again, from here at the radio station where I am, from the Charles Schwab studio, it's closer by like 5 minutes, I think, or longer. It's plus or minus 5 minutes than it used to be to the old ballpark. So it's right down the road in Navasota, the home games. And then Saturday and Sunday, you have the Bombers are back home at their Navasota Park. And if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. And hurry, I can still get discount tickets online.
Yeah, absolutely. You save 20% if you buy online, bvbombers.com. Take your seat, print it at home, or put it on your mobile device. And I think our good friend Robert Cessna told me that because of his heavy foot, it takes him about 12 minutes to get there. So I'm not sure how fast he's going or what laws he's breaking, but he claims he can get there super fast.
I don't doubt that, to be honest with you, because my drive is not much longer than his, and I don't want to incriminate. I drive faster than the average bear. So if he drives faster than me, he's probably about the 12, 13-minute mark. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was fun. He was at the stadium for opening week, and he was like, man, this is so easy. I can get here. I was like, okay, well, try not to get pulled over. And he's like, all right, I'll do my best.
Wait a minute. Would he be late for the game? Would that really be news? I mean, it'll be...
No, he was not late. He was on time because he was going so fast. So that's the proximity of that ballpark, the beautiful pastures behind it. You get to see a game. It's just the breeze is blowing, all the on-field contests. We got Dizzy Bat Race. We used to do Dizzy Noodle for all these years. Now it's Dizzy Bat Race thanks to Premier Painting. They painted the bats, and we said, okay, let's have some painted bats for Dizzy Bat Race. Those are always fun. And Kaboom, I think it's the best Kaboom we've had. I mean, it's obviously the same Kaboom we've always had. He's just better with time.
He's better with time. Okay. Check out everything we talked about. Check out more information. Go buy your tickets. Wait, I forgot. Go to bvbombers.com. Again, the schedule, ticket purchases, discounts for buying online. bvbombers.com. bvbombers.com. Uri, be awesome. Beat the hell out of everyone. Dude, great to check in with you.
Thanks for having me.
Later, man. Uri Geva joined us on the D4 Land Services hotline. Bombers baseball, 3 opportunities. And tomorrow night's cool. There's only 2 of them, 1 June, 1 July, but they're doing their barnstorming game, their pop-up game. The Bombers will be playing in Brenham and it's free. You get in, free tomorrow night. Then they're home down in Navasota, Saturday and Sunday. Check out bvbombers.com for more information. For all information, bvbombers.com. And again, Uri on the D4 Land Services hotline. And if you need your land fixed, land cleared, land excavated, go to d4landservices.com. We'll be back, wrap up our lunch hour. It's the Louie Bellina Show, Tuesday on The Zone.
You're listening to Bryan College Station's home for Aggie baseball, the Astros, and the Bombers. The Zone. 1150 AM and 93.7 FM.
The Louie Bellina Show, wrapping up our lunch hour together, and lunchtime is thanks to Rudy's Barbecue. The Louie Bellina Show presented by CC Electric. Just some, I say miscellaneous. It's not that miscellaneous. Something I saw, though. ESPN released their Women's College World Series. I call it the College World Series softball, and it was the most watched ever. Well, okay, here's the weird part. It was the second most watched Women's College World Series finals ever, but it had the first and third most watched softball games. I'll share. Here's the data. It is the second most Women's College World Series watched ever. The game 2 between Texas and Texas Tech, the second game, because Texas 2-0'd Texas Tech. Texas is the defending back-to-back national champions in softball. Go figure. Texas joins the SEC, and Texas is back. And that's not a joke or a parody or a meme. Texas is back. But that game 2 was the most watched college softball game on record. 3 million viewers. Most watched college softball game on record. The game 1 had 1.9 mil, and it was the third most watched College World Series Finals Game 1 on record. So, very exact here. The Game 1 of Texas Tech with 1.9 was the third most watched College World Series Finals Game 1 on record. And Game 2 at 2.5 peaked at 3 mil. 2.5 was the average. 3 mil peak. Most watched college softball game on record, period. As Texas defended, and they're now back-to-back. And guess what? Their ace pitcher, Kavan, she's back. She's got another year left. So back-to-back-to-back, we're going from an OU dynasty to a Texas dynasty. And you got A&M surrounded by both who can't advance out of their own regional, hosting for 2 straight years. That's just the reality. Staying on the diamond, Astros beat the Angels last night, and it took 10 innings. Spencer Arrighetti started. He didn't dominate, but it was a quality start at 6-3. Christian Walker, 2 for 4, 2 ribeyes. The story was the Astros used Hader in the 9th, and it was non-save, but at that point, it was just to force extras, and it worked. And Brian Abreu came in for the save, and it was glorious because he didn't stink. Sure, he gave up a hit, but that's it. Brian Abreu with a save. Hader gets the win. The Astros bullpen was brilliant. And Astros win, Astros win. Holy cow, Astros win. This next week and a half, the Astros don't have a real... Now, the Astros are not good enough that you can just sit there and go, oh, they should win. They have to play. It's all a fight. But you can't say they should win. It doesn't exactly work that way. But this is a chance to make some hay. I remember earlier in the year, in the first month after they went on their winning streak, they had that week and a half that they should have made hay, and they got destroyed, and it signaled everything wrong. I feel like we're at that same point now over the next week and a half where they can go like 6-3, which would continue them moving forward. They're only 2.5 back in the wild card, 4.5 back in the West. 5-5 in their last 10. They're healthy offensively. Hunter Brown, he's making a start. Today's not Wednesday. Tomorrow's Wednesday. He makes a start tomorrow, minor. And if everything checks out, no setback of any kind, he'll make his next start Monday, Tuesday. This would be his last minor league rehab. And you got Hader now back in the pen. Offense is healthy. And the next month, we'll just tell the tale. But I've been clear. I'm not down for just participation. But, hey, if they're going to make a push, I'm a fan. I'll push with them. And they'll have all their weapons for the first time since the opening week effectively? Yeah, pretty much. It'll be fun to watch. So the Astros win tonight, 8:10 pregame, 8:40 first pitch. Astros Angels game 2. You can hear it right here on the Zone, 11:50 a.m. at 93.7 FM. Astros baseball on the Zone. There are some select games on Willie 1550 AM, by the way. Astros baseball on the Zone brought to you by Kelly Burt Dozer. When we return, Olin Buchanan inside the Charles Schwab studio.
Your home for Texas Live, the Louie Bellina Show, and Chip Howard Sports Talk is the Zone 1150 AM and 93.7 FM. Listen on the Zone app or online at radioaggieland.com or tell Alexa, play Zone 1150.
Play Zone 1150.
Listen live on your phone, smart speaker, computer, or the Zone app. Powered by Loyalty Plumbing, where craftsmanship and loyalty is their business. Visit loyaltyplumbingllc.net. Take the Zone and your favorite teams and shows with you wherever you go.